Rid thou thyself of all attachments to aught except God. Enrich thyself in God by dispensing with all else besides him, and recite this prayer. Say, God sufficeth all things above all things, and nothing in the heavens or in the earth, or in whatever lieth between them, but God thy Lord sufficeth. Verily, he is in himself, the knower, the sustainer, the omnipotent. The Bob. So thank you everyone for joining. And today we're really happy to have Dr. Habib Riazati. And his topic will actually be different than what was on the flyer. There was a mistake on that. His topic today will be how the Bob's teachings address the theological challenges of our age. Dr. Riazati has been a scientist and strategist at Boeing Defense Integrated Systems for the last 38 years. He's also been a psychotherapist with a PhD in clinical psychology for the past 17 years, with a private practice called Integrative Counseling LLC. He's the founder of the Human in the Making Foundation, a nonprofit organization aimed at motivating and empowering the individuals to actualize their hidden, noble potentials, enriching families and communities and enabling them to develop social interests, offering unconditional services to their fellow human beings, and continuously engaging in abolishing human rights violations and abuses. He's also the coordinator of the Ocean of Lights website, which is the repository of the Baha'i writings categorized based on tablets and primary scholarly sources. He's also the author of 3 volumes of work on fundamental verities and progressive revelation, and is the program director of the television program Danesh Binesh Azadi. And so with that, I'm really happy to hand it off to Dr. Riazati.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be at your service today. The topic of Bob Primal Point is a significant topic, not only for the Baha'is, rather for many other sectors of society, especially sociologists, psychologists, politicians, philosophers. Bob is not an unknown figure. In fact, Bob his writings are very much spread throughout the world. You can find his writings in Cambridge. You can find it in UCLA. You can find it in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, and many other places in the world. Bob also has been the target of many religious figures, especially Abrahamian religion, whether they were Jews, Christian, or Muslim, because of the ideas that he had and because of the revolution that he has generated based on the evolution that he believed in. I know some of you might be familiar with him, but I try to, within this span of about an hour, to give you an overall perspective of where Bob actually stands today for Baha'is and non-Baha'is. Do you know he appeared in 1844? 1844 is not ordinary time. It was after the evolution of human consciousness. You had Renaissance of Europe already has broke down many of the ideals has raised a lot of questions about theology, about psychology, about human nature, about the universe itself. So the West really has done some homework because they were tired, fed up from that scholastic, autocratic dominance of the churches. So they started to rebel, but rebel not through sword, not through animosity. Rather, they cling to a very powerful tool, which is called human mind. So they start to rely on what Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle, these three famous figures of philosophical history, that they taught them that you need to ask questions. You need to ask questions, and you have to have a dialogue. In fact, asking question is a term, is an attribute of Socrates, and dialogue. Dialogue is actually a term that Plato used. Dialogue means you and I speak, but none of us have the answers. We exchange ideas. From one question, we go to another perspective, but that perspective creates a base for another question. So they, in Europe, they use these type of paradigm to start asking many questions. The questions about God, that famous God that everybody has been invoking for as long as humanity has come to know his own consciousness. About why am I here? Where am I going? Life after death. Soul. What is soul? What is the difference between soul and mind? What does it mean by the next world? What do you mean by next? Because when you say next, that means that something finishes, then something else begins. They start asking these questions. That, of course, if you are a, I apologize, if you are a religious person, you usually just believe. They said, well, believe? What do you mean by believe? What are you believing? Angels in the heaven? Well, skies, and somebody comes from skies on the clouds. So you name it, everything was up for questioning. So to give you an example, people appeared, such as Immanuel Kant, the people appeared, such as David Hume. Each of them tried to raise some concerns. Kant started to question morality that religious institutions have offered. Really, a morality which is based on do good, you go to heaven, and don't do bad because you go to hell. Kant said that is not called morality. That is called bargaining. That is called dealing. He says morality has to be unconditional. Ethics should not be something that you do it because of the reward or punishment. He says when you do something because of reward and punishment, it loses its nobility. So Kant, 40 years before Bob, question morality within religion. Another very interesting concept that Kant started to question was, where does mind go? When you are a religious person, do you use your mind, or mind is for rent? You just believe, that means you don't think, you do not analyze. So Kant was very much after enlightenment. And enlightenment for him was, you have to know first your own prejudices. You have to know your own bias. You have to have evidences for everything that goes into your mind. So then there was another person who, in fact, was a contemporary of the Bab, was called Nietzsche. Nietzsche is very famous with that phrase, God is dead. And he is famous in his book, Das said Zoroaster, that he questioned not God as whether it really is there or not, exists or not, but the way that the people have conceived it to be. Is he found this God to be very much dependent on maturity of humankind. So as you can see, if the central key, which is God, started to be questioned, then you do not expect the rest of the paradigm to hold, because you believe in God, then you believe in some people who claim to be appointed by him, then you build upon that institutions, then you have the ordinances. So I want you to first understand that what happened in Europe and what happened in 1844, now in 2025, the same energy is going. That means people are asking, look at your youths, the youths that I am addressing, whether you are a Baha'i, non-Baha'i, religious, non-religious, it really doesn't matter, because I believe as a human being, you need to consider this question. Look at the youths. Where are they? Do they really believe in these systems inwardly and utterly, or simply because they were born as a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim or a Baha'i or a Buddhist, they actually stay the same thing? So we have nothing to do with those people. Why? Because religion that has been adopted because of inheritance, then it doesn't have any value, because everything that we believe has to be done by our own volition, through our own investigation, and we should not consider how many people really believe in that idea or how many people reject that idea. So God, the central point, if you will, was one of the concepts that Ali Muhammad, the Bab, should have cleared. And he did. He actually agreed, perhaps, if that is a right term to use in a religious community, with Kant. It had agreed with Plato, with Socrates, that you have to ask question. You have to come from one answer to another question. he actually, his writing is in a way, their style is very much reflective and provocative. It tries to provoke you about your own thinking, about your own style, and he was very brave to raise the question exactly as it is. God for him could not be defined, because the moment you defined God, he ceased to be God. Because when you define something, that means you understand it. When you understand it, that means it is beneath your mind. Because unless you have a control over that which you try to define, you cannot actually define it. Abdul Baha Abbas, in some answer questions, dwells on that and states even further that whatever you talk about, whatever you think, whatever you imagine, that God be is nothing but your own creation. And in most likeliness, it is nothing but an illusion. So God, for Bob, had only one perhaps definition: unknowable essence. Unknowable, basically unknowable. Unknowable because some people say, well, it is unknowable essence. But other philosophers said, really, but you give him a lot of attributes, right? How do you give attributes something and then he is still unknown? He says, why God has to have attributes? So as you can see, my dear friends, Bob started the dialogue. The dialogue that, remember, God's concept evolves as humankind evolves. The God of 1,000 years ago is not the God of today, and the God of today is not the God of 1,000 years from now. That was evolution. And it is very much attractive. I highly recommend to read a book called History of God by Armstrong, a Christian who served in the church, and then he actually analyzed everything, and she decided that all of this concept that we have about God so far, she examined Judaism, Christianity, Islam. I have been in contact with her, encouraging her to look into Bob and Baha'u'llah, that I highly believe that is radically different from what we have been taught before about this concept. And she is almost old ages, and I have sent many, many things to her office. So, but she was interested. She did know about Bob, but not that entirely. So read that book. It gives you a very good idea that how the God of Judaism, God of Christianity, God of Islam will drastically differ from the God in Renaissance and the God that Bob and Baha'u'llah actually want us to believe in. So to make it short and sweet, Bob said, do you know, God is something which is not anything, but everything that we know of is through that emanation of His. Emanation. What is that emanation? At the beginning of the program, you saw that they talked about primal point. Primal point. Primal point, what does that really mean? Who is the primal point? Primal point is an attribute that we give to the primal will. By primal will, we simply means that will that creates the whole existence. Please pay attention. That primal will is that reality that operates in the world seen and unseen. That primal will is that which operates in cosmic level, in nature, in all that exists. That is very, very, very interesting, because Bob tries to distinguish the concept of God, which is unknown, from primal will. He actually gives the act of creation of the universe to primal will. He says primal will has created everything. What is the primal will? He again is unknown. Bob, in one of the first work that he wrote in Persian, Sahife Adliye, the treatise on justice, he talks about the fact that we should not use the concept of cause and effect to prove God, because it does not. And it is very interesting that this is the same type of argument that European philosophers and scholars use to say that that does not prove anything, especially Mr. or Mrs. God. Cause and effect only operates in the realm of human mind. Cause and effect actually creates a chain. This is why many philosophers, such as Russell, they said, if everything has a cause, then you should not stop with God, because then God should have a cause. This is why Bob started to take away all those definitions, historical definitions, that pretends to God to become the attributes of the primal will, Mashiyat Awwaliyeh, and then he starts talking about the fact that every attribute that we have given to God actually doesn't belong to that unknowable reality. Rather, it is attribute of the creation, and the utmost degree of that creation is what he calls manifestations of that hidden reality, which you call, say, Baha'u'llah, Buddha, and so forth. I just wanted until now to show you that Bob actually challenged all those religious people who had tried to create a business, a financial kingdom of this term God, and start to run with it. We said it's unknowable. Forget it. Do not try to define it. Do not try to divide people against it. It is very interesting that what Bob initiated, later on Jung, Carl Jung, said maybe everybody inwardly has a gravity towards a force which is unknown, and we call that God. That is perhaps something that is very interesting. Now, so for Bob, there was a God who was unknowable. There was a creation which was the manifestations of that eternal reality. And then from this realm of creation, which was a manifestations, there was one manifestation with capital M. And that capital M religiously was called manifestation of God, or as Baha'u'llah says it in Iran, the most perfect reflection of that primal will. That means everything that exists is an emanation of that will, but there is a primal point, a primal will, which is the manifestation of God. Now, please pay attention. But Bob resolved another dilemma. When we say manifestation of God, when we say primal will, we have to be very careful that we are not talking about the body of these manifestations. Bob says body of the manifestation is from clay, is physical. The reality is eternal. Reality is never born. Reality shall never die. Please pay attention. He says when we talk about the unity of the manifestations, we are talking about that primal will, which is one, which is eternal in the past, eternal in the future. Please pay attention. He says, this is why when you say Muhammad, Moses, Jesus, Bob, Baha'u'llah, you are not talking about Moses to be the son of Abraham, or Jesus to be the son of Mary. He said that is physical reality. We are talking about that light, that reality that shines within them. He says this is why Muhammad says, I am Jesus, I am Moses. This is why Jesus says, if you would have known Moses, you would have known me. This is why Bob says, I am the same prophet as the rest of them. I am Muhammad, I am Buddha. Or the same thing appears for all of them. Please pay attention already. So primal point is something above this manifestation or that manifestation, is a common thread which connects them together. Bob, another very important contribution that he makes is, he says, remember, religion is only for education. It's not for dominance. It's not for control. It's for liberation. Liberation from ignorance. Liberation from all that which deprive a person from being a human. Wow, human. That is a very interesting term. Bob uses it even in his last works One of them is called Temple of Religion, Heikaluddin. He says, I told you everything throughout these years, but I want to tell you, all of them have to end to one thing. No dress, no attire is more befitting you than to be human. Be human. Be religious? No. Religious is a means, is not an end. Do not be scientist. Be human. Science is a means. Religion is a means. Please pay attention. He therefore already abolished all those doctrines that taught humanity kill for the sake of God. Jihad. When they ask him, do you believe in jihad? He says, of course. Jihad means with your own ego. Jihad means through your morality, ethics, humanism, you actually fight that which is not godly, which means is not universally good. Do you see how these things operate? So Bob then tackled another idea. Religion is a means, but religion is one. Religion is one. In reality, it manifests based on maturity of humankind. Therefore, there is no such a thing as the seal, the last, the only prophet. Jesus is the only way. Muhammad is the seal of the prophet. Khatamun Nabi'in. Bob says, no, you don't understand what's going on here. Jesus, its reality was eternal. The same reality that promoted Moses, the same reality that promoted Muhammad, the same reality that promoted the Bab and Baha'u'llah is that reality in Jesus. This is why, please pay attention. Bob tried to say, in fact, believing that one religion is the last religion is the biggest insult to humanity. Because you tell humanity that you don't deserve more. You cannot grow more. This is the first. This is the last. It means what it says. It says what it means. Bob said, think about these things. Please pay attention. This is one of those religious systems, Bobism, that encourages the people of the world. Think. That is the highest, that is the most glorious gifts that God has given you. Baha'u'llah, after him, actually promotes that. Bob, in Persian Bayan, he says, if you do not think, if you do not reflect, your faith even might not be stable. This is why faith and reason go together. This is very, very interesting concept. And that is why he was very attractive to the Westerner. Many people try to unravel his writings. Some people try to translate his works in French into English. Now, do you know, so theologically, Bob made a referendum on the concept of God. To a certain degree, Nietzsche was right. The God of idle fancy and vain imagining has to go to the grave site and to cemetery. That was a notion of Nietzsche. Where are you going, Nietzsche? He says, I'm going to cemetery to bury the god of idle fancy and vain imagining. Why are you going to bury him? He says, in order to bring out the nobility of humankind. And through the innermost self of humanity, the God shall be born. Please pay attention. This is why then psychology of the Bob becomes very important. Jungian psychology, Maslow's psychology, Carl Rogers' psychology, they all in a way reflect what Bob was intended. Pay attention to the nobility of humankind. Don't think you are a very limited human being. No, he says you are not limited. The sky is your limit. You always can be more noble. He says what you give to God, it's actually your inner realities that you have to unravel. Please pay attention. He says religion is only here to have education, educate you to unravel that mysteries which is within you, hidden. Now, so as you can see, he has a high value for human. Therefore, human is made of a man and a woman, male and female. He has a high regards for females. He says historical prejudices against him, against her, has been unjust. He calls females to be like the leaves of the heaven. He says, do not sadden them, do not hurt them. So as you can see, he actually breaks with those ideas of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, that they relied on a very, very immature story of Adam and Eve and creation. Please pay attention. So you know Bob as a forerunner, the Bob who came to say, hi, how are you? I just came to tell you Baha'u'llah is coming. But it's not like that. If you do it, you stop right there, you haven't done really good to yourself. Bob is more than that. Bob actually is so significant that unless we understand him fully and his contribution to humankind, we may not fully appreciate what Baha'u'llah tries to do for human and for future of human. Bob, in a sense, came to break down all those ideals that were not practical, all those stories that were symbolic only, all those notions that were inhuman. With Bob, mind, intellect, and heart, they have to go together. For Bob, investigation of truth was a right and obligation of everyone. Please pay attention. This is why he did not believe in imitation. He did not believe in clergies. He says, what do you mean? Clergy? He says, why clergy? You are another human being. You make your own errors. Why should you prefer yourself above somebody else? On what ground? This is why he tells the people of the world, see with your own eye, hear with your own ear, investigate with your own mind. And even if the whole world believes in something or denies something, that doesn't mean that you have to believe or you have to deny. You are on your own. Don't you think that is revolutionary? Don't you think that tells you that, hey, there is no such a thing as priesthood? Nobody comes between you and your own God. It is a spiritual journey. It is a transformation. It is not a ladder. So, abolishment of clergyhood was his message to humankind. He says, hey, the one who reflects the attributes of God, he is closer to God. Not the one who professes to believe in something. No. Going back to the woman, why the woman's very inferior? Well, you all know it. God created heaven and earth in 6 days. Do you remember? You were there. I wasn't there. And then he created Adam, and then from his left rib, he created Eve. Do you remember? And then what happened? And Adam was a happy man, was enjoying the garden. And then this lady showed up. He said, what's going on, Adam? He said, well, we are supposed to do this, but we are not supposed to go and eat from that tree. What tree? Now, between Christian, Jews, and Muslim, they are negotiating which tree was that. But there was an apple. Oh, and then Eve was a very intelligent woman, said, oh, go for it, let's go and eat it. And poor Adam was deceived with this woman, and they went and ate from the apple. And then both of them were thrown out. And then the whole narrative of subjugation of woman started. Do you see that? It wasn't a story, buddy. It was a creation myth. Because every element of that story scientifically is not validated. God created heaven and earth in 6 days. 6 days? What a lazy God. 6 days? What do you mean days? Time and space is something that God, the unknowable, operates on. Why 6 days? Why not 1 day, you lazy God? And then after 6 days, he rested on the 7th day. And then after he rested, he became very, very saddened that he created humanity. You tell me, ladies and gentlemen, young and old, do you believe humanity should believe in 21st century in this type of dogmas? When the universe is 18 to 20 billion years old, you still are clinging to the 6 days story, the story which is inconclusive. Do you remember? The 3rd day he created the sun. How did you create the sun on the 3rd day, and then how did you keep track the first day? How did you conceive the concept of day, Mr. God, on the 3rd day? You created the sun. Do you see? The more you analyze it, the more you say either it's a nonsense, either it is a narrative, or it is symbolic. Please pay attention. This is why many people, such as Stanton, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, wrote a book called Woman's Bible. And it is very interesting. These women read that, Woman's Bible. She is the same woman who at the same time that Tahireh in Badasht was proclaiming the detachment from the old order, she actually in Seneca Falls, New York, established the new liberty for women, equality of man and woman. Please pay attention to these dynamics that are happening. So Bob said, no, that was a symbolic. Many things are symbolic. You take it literal. This is why it becomes dogma. God does not operate by time and space. God doesn't regret. God does not excel one being over another. Why God should care whether you eat from apple or banana, for God's sake? And then you want to ask the youths to believe in what? In dogma? Bertrand Russell has a very, very important statement. We may be born ignorant, but our environment, education makes us stupid. Bob doesn't want humanity to use religion because of his stupidity. He wants to accept religion based on volition and enlightenment. Please pay attention. So men and women have an equal right for Bob. Another thing, I have to go fast because I know that question might appear. Do you know, I spoke about many things that Bob did, but let me give you another perspective. Laws. He has a book called, before I talk about laws, do you know Bob has many, many, many writings. The last count that I had in order to develop Ocean of Lights was over 202 works. Of course, these numbers go up and down. He wrote the first thing that we know of him is he wrote at the age of 15 a treatise on the religious laws, Risale Fiqhiyeh, what to do, what not to do. And it appears, although that treatise or work has not been found, and it is listed among one of the best known works by Shoghi Effendi, it shows me, at least, only from the title, that this young mind, young man, young manifestation actually was concerned about how people use laws. Is laws to limit you or to free you? Is the laws is to bring out your nobility or to actually suppress you? Please pay attention. He later on, he actually flourishes that concept in Persian Bayan. You know, Persian Bayan is the most important work of the Bab. And in order to understand Persian Bayan, you can correlate it with another work of Baha'u'llah, which is called Kitab-e-Iran. In fact, Bab did not finish Bayan, Persian Bayan, and then he left it to Baha'u'llah to finish it, and it appears Iran to be the book that, according to beloved Shoghi Effendi, is the completion of Bayan. But it is very interesting to note that the laws in Bayan all are to free us, not to limit us, to free us from our ego, free us from our illusion, and free us from misconceptions about our own reality and others. So as you can see, psychology plays very important role in the laws that Bob has ordained. For instance, he under no circumstances allows anybody to sadden somebody else. He says it's not acceptable. Why? Because first of all, this is not worthy of your station to sadden somebody else. Well, if the people do injustice to me, what do I do? He says, to do justice, you deal with injustice. If somebody lies, through honesty, you actually remove lie and deceit. He says, because somebody else's behavior should not undermine your own nobility, your own essence. So his laws, if you want to know some of his laws, in fact, most of his laws are repeated in Aqdas. This is why he himself, when he wrote the laws and he wrote the Bayan, he says that Bayan is a gift that I have to the one whom God shall make manifest. Whatever he accepts is because of his bounty, and whatever he rejects is because of his justice. Do you see? There was a unique relationship between these two men. You have heard that Bob says, I have no other wish but to sacrifice myself in his path. Well, Baha'u'llah in Iran, I have no other wish but to sacrifice myself in the path of primal point, Noqte. So as you can see, there is a love story between Bob and Baha'u'llah. Now, another very important thing that Bob did, he had to deal with some of the fundamental misconceptions with religious followers. Return. When does he return? Is Baha'u'llah the return of Christ? Or Muhammad is a return of Christ? No. Only Baha'u'llah is a return of Christ. He tries to get rid of these nonsenses and say, if the reality is one, if there is only one primal point, shouldn't we say that every manifestation is the same reality of all the manifestations of the past? Therefore, if you believe in the latest, you have believed in all. But if you believe in the latest, at the same time, you have to consider that latest to be an introduction for the next one. This is what he called progressive revelation. He says there is no such a thing as one is the boss of another. No. If Muhammad came instead of Baha'u'llah, he would say the same thing. Because they are after education of humanity. We do not prefer one manifestation over another. Bob and then Baha'u'llah in the tablet of divine unity, he says, whosoever exalts one manifestation above another, they have violated divine unity. Do you see that? So what is return? Well, return simply means the same reality in a higher intensity manifests. That's all. And it chooses a temple. Now, at one time is Muhammad, another time is Ali Muhammad, another time is Mirza Hussein Ali. And he tells humankind, do not worship Mirza Hussein Ali or Ali Muhammad or Jesus or Moses. No. Concentrate on that energy, on that reality, on that teaching. And then you understand the concept of return. This is why if somebody asked you, Baha'i, understanding Bab and Baha'u'llah, had Jesus returned, you say, oh, my friend, Habib, a sleepy Habib, he once returned in the name of Muhammad. Then he returned in the name of Bab. Now he has returned in the name of Baha'u'llah. Catch him before he returns next time. Do you see that? We have to change this definition. For instance, heaven, Bob, he says heaven. Heaven is how you think here and now. Hell is the degree in which you are unaware of reality. This is why, Baha'u'llah, heaven is reunion with me. Hell is thine own self. Do you see all of these things? I highly recommend, highly, if you are youth, if you are lawyer, if you are psychologist, if you are sociologist, go and see how Bob actually defines your field. How does he look at human culture? What do you mean by lawyer? What do you mean by psychologist? What is the role of a psychologist? What is the role of a lawyer? I know you define everything based on the price tag, based on the salary that you make. But Bob doesn't buy those things. Bob says your sector is determined by service that you provide, not by the money that you consume. Now, let me at the end, I tell you what is the most important topic in the writings of the Bab, which made me to write 3 books about it. 3 books, and mostly unravel the writings of the Bab, was the concept of progressive revelation. He has a term called Man Yusrahullah, the one whom God shall make manifest. Please pay attention in these 2 minutes. He says, every manifestation comes to prepare us for the next one. Next one in his writings is called one whom God shall make manifest. He, in a very important work, 7 proofs, he says all the manifestations from the day which had no beginning, they all came in order for me to manifest. Before me they came because of Muhammad. After Muhammad they all came, and Muhammad came because of me. And I have come because of the one whom God shall make manifest, i.e. Baha'u'llah. And all those who came before me and the one whom God shall make manifest will come because They want to make us ready for the one whom God shall make manifest after the one whom God shall make manifest. And then he continues, until the end, which has no end to it. Do you see that? Progressive revelation is the heart of everything that he says. He says, if you don't believe in a progressive revelation, you don't believe in evolution, you do not believe in change, you do not believe in relativity, then you are nothing but a dogmatic, dead person who actually are just breathing. Let the dead bury the dead, Bob. But the first dead and the second dead are not the same. Somebody spiritually is dead, mentally is dead. Now, let me tell you what is in my heart, and I love Bob for that. Do you know angels? Who are the angels? I know you're all angels. I know that. And I didn't actually kid with you. Bob says angels are humans. Angels are those who are balanced, whose mind, whose heart, whose emotion, whose intellect are unified. They are the ones who actually are the agent of change. They have no agenda. They love humanity unconditionally. They have no prejudice. Do you see that? He redefines angel. Baha'u'llah in Iran affirms that. No. He has a term called letters of living. Letters of living. Who are they? He says, hey, letters of living are those that they are alive. What do you mean they are alive? Their mind is sharp, their heart is attentive, their soul is shining. He says, I want the whole world to be the letters of living. Wow. So see, so don't just take it. Who are the letters of living? The first people who accepted the Bob. That is only a small portion of the whole story. Because remember, you can be a letters of living, but you may not be living. What do you mean? Look at it. Bob had 18 letters of living, right? Some of them didn't understand his mission. Some of them actually doubted. They are not living, although they had this bounty of knowing him. They were not transformed. So letter of living is the one who is transformed mentally, emotionally, intellectually, and in action. Now, the last thing, miracles. Bob didn't believe in physical miracles. You knew that. He said physical miracle is only good for the people who see it. But that should not be used in order to prove anything. You know his martyrdom. You know that the first time it was not successful. You know that Bob and his Anise companion, they were both alive. Don't you think Bob could stand right there and tell people who had a small doubt in him to say, oh, people, did you see what happened? I didn't die. But he didn't say that. He did not believe in these miracles. In a book called Seven Proofs, he says, I have one miracle, and that is my writings. I have one miracle, and that is the creative energy which is in my writings. And that creative energy is the energy that emanates from the primal point, a point that all the manifestations of God actually emanate from. Please pay attention. If you want to remember something of this session, I know I may have confused you enough, but I'm happy if I confused you, because I want you to go and study Bob. I want you, if you are young, go and read Arabic, read Persian. I know many Americans who are not a Baha'i, who are not believer in God, but they actually are learning Arabic, learning Persian, because they want to know Bob. Bob is not a religious interest of humanity. Now, at the day that religion is losing its whole energy, if you will, there are three groups of people. One who become more fundamentalist, extremist, fanatics, and there are second group who actually leave everything and go away, and there are third group that I am talking to are the ones that they say, maybe we need to have a new definition for religion, a new definition for God, a new definition for humanism. And that is where interest in Bob comes in. And I just want to end with this. Bob was to destroy dogma. And unless you destroy dogma, you cannot become enlightened. And unless we are not enlightened, we cannot appreciate the one who Bob sacrificed his life for him, who was Baha'u'llah. That is to say, these twin forces of destruction and construction should be taken very seriously. Bob was not after destruction of nobility, was not after destroying the fundamental verities. It was after abolishing dogma. And please remember, this is a statement of Immanuel Kant. You never can become enlightened unless you willingly accept who you are, identify your prejudices, and have courage to deal with it. Then and only then you would relieve yourself from the bondage of ignorance. And that is what Bob wanted to do, to free us to feel for ourselves, to think for ourselves, and then in all of our actions, only have one thing in mind: how does that help humanity as a whole? Not the people who look like us. There is no such a thing for Bob and for Baha'u'llah as Baha'is versus non-Baha'is. No, humans. We are all humans. We are born to be human. We are not to be Muslim or Baha'i. Baha'i is a means to be a better human. This is why never forget definition of Abdul Baha Abbas. To be a Baha'i means to walk on the path of acquiring human perfection, which is endless. Thank you, and apologize for the lengthy discussion.
Thank you so much for that really amazing talk. We really appreciate it. Now we have some time for questions, so people can put their questions in the chat. Let's see. My understanding that Muhammad is the seal of the prophets. He was the last of the prophets of the age of prophecy that began with Adam. In 1844, the Bab served as the door or gate to the age of fulfillment of the former age, the age of prophecy. And that we're now in the age of fulfillment announced by Baha'u'llah in 1863. Would you speak more to this?
Of course. Well, it is, in a sense, in human domain, it is correct. But what I mentioned was when it has to do with the reality. What you are referring to is about the mission, their mission for humanity. What I was talking about the reality of the manifestation of God. All of them are the first and the last. In fact, the same Muhammad that you consider the seal, Khatam, he says, I am the first, I am the middle, I am the last. Awwalina Muhammad, Awsatina Muhammad, Akhirina Muhammad, means the beginning of all things is Muhammad, the middle is Muhammad, the end is Muhammad. Do you see this? So you have to make sure when you say these things, in what realm are you talking about? You are talking in the realm of creation? Very, very clear. You had an Adamic cycle, but do you know what? That was only one cycle. Humanity did not start with Adam. This is why when they asked Muhammad how many manifestations we had, he said, oh really, 124,000. Oh really? Can anybody in this group name more than 10, 20 of them? But what did Muhammad wanted to say? That, oh Habib, don't be confined to time and space. As long as humanity existed, educators existed. And in terms of education, we have cycles. Cycles for human maturity and nobility. Fulfillment doesn't mean the end. Fulfillment means higher stage, but it is still the introduction for the next. Please pay attention. So when we say Adamic cycle, what the age of prophecy, what does that really mean? Think about it. Come out of your shell. Ask yourself what Socrates said. Ask questions. What do you mean by that? You mean Muhammad didn't fulfill anything? It wasn't a fulfillment. He just came and said prophecies. That was the way that he wanted to change the world, change the nation. You want to tell me that Jesus was simply about prophecies? So what did he do for humanity? Besides making promises for the future. Please pay attention. Please pay attention to what you say. What they meant was very simple. From the day one that creation started, for the realm of creation, the ultimate objective was unity of humankind. So you could say all the manifestations of God from the day one had one aim, ultimate objective, unity of humankind, وحدت عالم انسانی. But each one of them went through stages. So Adam, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, even Bob, they had an immediate goal and ultimate goal. that ultimate goal is a fulfillment of all the previous goals. That is quite different from what we just linearly understand. Let me tell you something. Unity of humankind could not come to existence if there wasn't for Muhammad, Jesus, or Moses. Moses was about unity of family. Unity of family is the basis, isn't it? How can you have a humankind united, but family is not united? Jesus, tribe, Muhammad, nation, Baha'u'llah, welcome home. Do you see that? I am inviting you not use this statement like a parrot. Have been told something? Have you read something? Analyze it. For every concept that you have, ask yourself, what are the problems with that concept that I don't see? And then you widen your understanding. So the answer to your question is, we are not saying that Baha'u'llah is the last. Get it. I know it might be hard. He is the manifestation for today and requirement of the age in which we live in. But his aim is to prepare us for the next one. Never forget that. And make sure your children and your grandchildren know that they would not become like the followers of the past. This is very important, my dear friends. To summarize it, yes, age of prophecies compared to unity of humankind, that was a prophecy. But at the same time, they had to fulfill their own mission, which was a unity of family, unity of tribe, unity of nation. Look at it. You are at the age that you are speaking of the unity of humankind, but the people even have lost the value of unity of family. You want to tell me that they were all prophecies? No. Prophecy means something that happens in the future. And I tell you, prophecy simply means this. I, as a psychologist, you have a 2 years old, you tell him about that, when you become 40, is the age of maturity, say, you have this and that. So I am prophesizing. But at the same time, I have to meet the requirement of this child at the age of 2. But I prepare him for the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, until 40. But that doesn't mean age of 40 is superior to the age of 2. Bob, in Persian Bayan, he says, "Oh, foolish Habib, if the age of 2 didn't exist, how could you become 40? This is why you have to look at this thing very holistically and truly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that's all the time we have for questions, but I want to really thank you again, Dr. Riazati, for that talk. And we'll post this on YouTube afterwards. So if people have any more questions, you can continue to dialogue in the comments section. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.